32,000 years ago, the Cro-Magnon people invented the lunar calendar, the first calendar in human history. However, the 4.5 billion years of Earth's formation is an enormous period of time when compared to the time since humans learned how to measure what a day is. Thanks to the development of science, especially in the field of geology, humans have been able to estimate Earth's different eras. We know about the Jurassic or Cretaceous periods. But how do we define a period, and why do they have such names? Hello, passengers, and welcome back to the Time Machine. Today, we will journey from the past to the present, exploring the periods of Earth's history through the video series on all the periods of Earth. Let's get started. Geological dating is an important tool used by geologists in their research. Time periods are measured and contextualized in terms of years, often represented by units such as megaannum, equivalent to millions of years, and kiloannum, equivalent to thousands of years. Determining geological ages gives us a broad perspective on Earth's transformation processes. At the same time, it helps scientists predict and analyze Earth's movements and changes in the future. To determine geological ages, the following methods are commonly used. The radiometric method, based on the ratio between parent and daughter isotopes in a rock sample. The fossil method, which determines rock age through the fossils of species that existed only for short periods. Another method involves the sequence of soil and rock layers, determining age based on the relative position of rock layers, where the top layer is generally newer than the lower layers. Thanks to these methods, scientists can determine the age of a fossil sample from millions of years ago. So, how are time periods from Earth's distant past divided using geological dating? Let's move on to the next part. Earth's 4.543 billion years are divided into 4 eons. First is the Hadean Eon, which spans from the formation of Earth and ends around 3.8 billion years ago. The name Hadean is derived from Hades, the god of the underworld in Greek mythology. The reason for this name is that it evokes an image of the underworld or refers to the harsh conditions on Earth at that time. A burning hell once existed on Earth. Next is the Archean Eon, which spans from the end of the Hadean Eon until about 2.5 billion years ago. Since the sun was much dimmer than it is today, Earth's temperature at that time was not as hot as imagined. The atmosphere contained much less oxygen, which was primarily produced by the breakdown of water by ultraviolet rays. It was only toward the end of the Archean Eon, with the emergence of photosynthesis from cyanobacteria, that the amount of oxygen in the air began to increase, paving the way for the Great Oxidation Event at the start of the Proterozoic Eon. Now we come to the Proterozoic Eon, also known as the Eon of Early Life. This eon spans from the end of the Archean Eon to 541 million years ago, meaning the Proterozoic Eon lasted for over 2 billion years of Earth's history, an extremely long period. Naturally, it was also one of the most important periods of Earth, as the first forms of life began to diversify. Today, it is natural for animals to eat one another. Our ecosystems are structured by predator-prey relationships, like killer whales eating seals, seals eating squid, and squid eating smaller creatures. All of these animals need oxygen to extract energy from their food. However, the first life forms on Earth were not like that. In an oxygen-free environment rich in methane, Earth, for much of its history, was not an ideal place for animals to live. The earliest life forms we know of were microorganisms, evidenced by traces of their presence left in fossils about 3.7 billion years old. These traces include a type of carbon molecule produced by living organisms. Evidence of microorganisms is also preserved in hard structures known as stromatolites, which they created, dating back around 3.5 billion years ago. Stromatolites formed when layers of microorganisms stuck together and trapped sediment. Minerals precipitated within these layers, creating durable structures even after the microorganisms died. When cyanobacteria emerged during the Archean Eon, they triggered a remarkable transformation. They became the first organisms on Earth capable of photosynthesis. deriving food from water and energy from the sun, with the result being the release of oxygen. By the end of the Archean, this led to a sudden increase in oxygen levels, making the environment less favorable for other microorganisms that could not survive in oxygen-rich conditions. After the sudden spike in oxygen levels, it stabilized at a lower level and remained that way for the next few billion years. This was due to cyanobacteria, which both increased and then reduced the oxygen levels themselves. As they died and dissolved into the water, the decomposition of their bodies lowered the oxygen concentration. Therefore, the oceans were still not a suitable environment for most life forms that required high levels of oxygen. However, these early microorganisms did not have the specialized cells needed for a complex body. The bodies of modern animals consist of various types of cells like skin, blood, or bone, with organelles within each cell, each performing a distinct function. Microorganisms, on the other hand, were just single cells without organelles and without a nucleus to synthesize their DNA. But then a revolution occurred when microorganisms began living inside other microorganisms, acting as organelles for them, evolving into mutually beneficial relationships. Energy organelles would convert food into energy. Additionally, for the first time, DNA was synthesized in a nucleus, giving rise to new complex cells called eukaryotic cells, which possess specialized parts to perform specific tasks that support the entire cell. And from there, the first animals were born. In the latter half of the Proterozoic Eon, around 800 million years ago, clusters of symbiotic living cells eventually became the first animals. Sponges were among the earliest animals. Oxygen levels in the ocean were still lower compared to today, but sponges were able to withstand low oxygen conditions. Although, like other animals, they needed oxygen for metabolism. They didn't require much since they were not highly active. They fed without moving by extracting food particles from water that was pumped through their bodies by specialized cells. The evolution of these complex and diverse bodies led to the differentiation into many types of animals. From there, many different species evolved. Some elements of the human genome and the complete DNA of all animals have been functioning in similar ways to the genomes of ancient sponges. This mechanism drives gene expression, a key factor in species diversity throughout the animal kingdom. An eon consists of eras, with an era typically lasting from several hundred million to a billion years. Within an era, there are multiple periods or systems. The time frame from the end of the Ediacaran period, which belonged to the Neoproterozoic era or the late Proterozoic era, is also the last era of the Proterozoic Eon. The entire time frame before this is known as the Precambrian, around 580 million years ago. In addition to sponges, other types of organisms began to emerge and evolve during the Ediacaran period. These diverse marine organisms had bodies shaped like leaves. Fossil evidence of them can be found in sedimentary rock layers across the world. These ancient animals are referred to as the Ediacaran biota. This group is based on the earliest fossils ever discovered, providing evidence of complex, multicellular organisms. In a fossil sample of the slug-like creature Cambrian, researchers found preserved phytosterol molecules in the creature's gut. This chemical product, phytosterol, which is found in plants, indicates that Cambrian consumed algae and bacteria from the ocean floor. Paleontologists believe that Cambrian was likely one of the most advanced organisms of the Ediacaran period, having a mouth, gut, and digestive system similar to modern animals. But by the end of the Ediacaran period, oxygen levels had risen to a point sufficient to sustain oxygen-dependent life forms. The first species of sponges may have contributed to the increase in oxygen by consuming bacteria, removing them from the decomposition process. Fossils of an organism called Dickinsonia show that it was able to move along the ocean floor and feed on layers of bacteria. The evolution of these multicellular organisms also drastically altered Earth's environment, leading to Earth's first mass extinction, the Ediacaran extinction. This extinction event occurred around 541 million years ago, marking the end of the Ediacaran period and the beginning of the Cambrian period. Environmental changes, such as the increase in oxygen levels in the air and water, created conditions for the development of new animal groups in the Cambrian period, while also imposing a new environment on Ediacaran organisms, making them unable to adapt. Approximately 80% of animals from this time went extinct. At the same time, this opened up a new era for more complex animals, which began to proliferate and evolve, eventually creating the world we know today. And that's the first part of the video about the ancient periods of Earth, explaining what the Precambrian stage is, discussing the earliest life forms on Earth, and why they were wiped out from the planet. Now, if you enjoyed this content, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell so you don't miss any upcoming videos. Additionally, you can support us directly through the information provided in the description. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. See ya!